Hi, I'm Dr. Michelle.
Dr. Joe.
And welcome to the Coping Cafe. So it has been a little while since we've been recording. The pandemic has kind of put us a little bit slower.
Sure has.
Slower with taping only because we've been so busy seeing people and trying to help people. I know you and I just trying to connect it takes a lot longer.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so today we were just going to go through just depression and anxiety, how to help your child with anxiety and depression during a pandemic, how to decrease it. So we've been getting a lot of influx of phone calls, variety of different people. I don't know what you're seeing, and I know it's been really tremendous, the amount of people calling in.
More so than usual, absolutely related to the pandemic. It's
Absolutely.
been hard.
Right. I think, a prolonged time of stress and uncertainty has left the entire nation sort of in a state of trauma, and also just no one's 100%. Like no one's just like, oh, I got this. It's 100% easy. And so I think, children, right? Parents are calling a lot with concerns, not only for themselves, but also for their children. And I think one of the things that we want to talk today is how to help your children with anxiety and depression and how to decrease that probability sort of during a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
When you take a look at the demographics, children of parents with anxiety disorders are 4 to 6 times more likely to develop an anxiety disorder. I mean, that's staggering in
Sure
terms of
is.
numbers. And so just looking at that, like in terms of causality, is really, it's obviously multi-directional, complex, but one of the things we know is that there's a mix of genetics, but there's also environment. Right?
Nurture nature.
Absolutely. And so I think one of the things that we as parents, and I think you've seen this in your own children and mine, you kind of like, we're the mirror for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that children pick up on so many things, and you cannot help or hide the kind of stress that we as a nation have been going through.
Sure. And you were talking about before a really interesting study. Can you talk about that with the babies?
Okay, so, yes. So one of the things that they've done is to look at young children and whether they would develop anxiety at an early age. And so what they did was they created a clear floor, and they had babies. The clear floor is, it's a floor they are safely able to walk across, but it looks like, it could fall down. But babies at that point really don't see the depth perception. They don't see it. So it was basically the parent was on the one side and the baby was on the other. And would the child come to the parent? And so what really they were testing, they were looking to see how, they were telling people how they crawl, right? But really it was watching parents' facial expressions and correlating that to will the child, crawl across that area. And what they found was parents who gave a scared look, their child halted, right? And parents who were like, oh, hey, or just kind of like, look, looked at their child and like calmly, those children like just crawled right across that area.
So even at that young of an age, they're picking up on those cues.
They're picking up on it, right. They're picking up on cues. And a lot of it was facial cues, so non-verbal. And they were looking at like fear versus calm. And so it's not that during this time people can put a fake face on. I'm not saying that. Mm-hmm. What we can do is process it in a healthy way, is when you're feeling as if like you're so overwhelmed, kids interpret it as, am I overwhelming my parents?
Right.
Because a lot of kids are saying, my parents are overwhelmed with my schoolwork. And what I want to say to them is, no, they're just overwhelmed, right? Your parents are just overwhelmed. They're working. They're trying to make sure that you're educated. They're overwhelmed. But I think parents are like, no, I'm fine, I'm good, like that. Instead of actually saying, honey, I'm not feeling great today. I'm worn down, I'm tired. But really explaining that this is just a bad time in life and that we're gonna get through this. It's just,
So being honest
Yes.
with giving reassurance.
Right.
Yeah.
And what it does is it's a way of expressing your emotions appropriately
Right.
and in a healthy manner. And it also takes the burden off the child, right? Mm-hmm. It's like if you said basically when somebody goes, like you think they're mad at you And then all of a sudden they say, oh, I had a terrible day. My boss was really mad at me. And they're like, oh, good, it's not me. Okay, I didn't
Right.
make that, you know what I mean? So you take the burden off of a child during this time and just talk to them. And the idea that like you're going through it, they're going through it, and they can understand it, I think is really healthy. I mean, life is full of uncertainty, it's stressful, you know, you're going to have traumatic times in your life, but you're also going to have joy, which you always like Joe and her joy juice, you know, like you're going to have joy and love and wonderful things also. And I think that the idea is to make kids, you know, understand that there's a balance between things. And I think that's really important. And
well, so a balance, but also knowing that the reality is there's good stuff, there's bad stuff, and having confidence in your ability to deal with the bad stuff in a healthy way.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And again, that's exactly it. You see a parent really struggle, but they show you that they're still going to make it. That's basically saying, oh, there's really hard times, but it's okay because you'll get over it.
Right.
Like we'll work through this. And I think that's something, the message and obviously the resilience you can see in children, right? As it's going to be okay. And so that's one of the things I really want, you know, parents to do when you're talking about how do I help my child? Help yourself, right? And I know you were going to talk about that on our next
Yes,
episode. Is really
right.
kind of, you know, like kind of bringing that in, how, you know, like sort of that pandemic fatigue and all the stuff that's going on. So I really just want parents to know that, you know, you're human. We're all, you know, if you want to help your child, talk them through, express yourself. That doesn't mean like hysterically crying in the corner, you know, all the time. That just means like saying, I'm having a hard day. Vocalize it, right? Talk to them. It's not you, you know, that's really, it's the situation. And I don't mean to sound cranky when I'm telling you to get back on Zoom and do your classes. And I'm trying not, and just say, I know it's hard for you. It's also hard for me to do work and be a teacher at the same time. So one of the things I really want parents to know also is the way they say things, right? So, you know, we want to, one, talk about things, normalize feelings, take the burden off children that it's not them, it's what's going on around us. And the other part of it is watching how we say things. Like a lot of times people call and they'll be like, you're depressed, right? Okay, yeah, so my daughter's depressed and she wants to come in, or my child has anxiety. And if early on we can start saying things like, my daughter's been nervous, my daughter's been scared lately, right? Or my daughter's feeling sad, my son is feeling sad today, he's a little upset, we're trying to figure this out. Sometimes the words we use are less, you know, the less formal, the less longevity of the word, right? Because depressed, anxious.
We don't want to pathologize.
Right.
We want to say normal feelings, right? You can be sad, you can feel a little nervous about something.
And that's not to say that your child might not have an anxiety disorder or be in a state of depression, but I always want to talk to people about being in a state of depression or having a state of panic or anxiety as something that, you know, really if we talk about it, it can be acute in nature. It happens and then it doesn't happen. It's not a trait that you're born with. And so if we start to use, you know, one, normalizing feelings, taking the burden off, and then talking to our children in a way like actually saying, so you're feeling sad today? So again, just going through, we want to take the burden off our children, we want to normalize the feelings, and we don't want to over pathologize, as you just said. We really just want to give them direct verbiage that says that this is something you're going through right now. It doesn't have to be permanent. And sometimes when we talk about depression or I'm an anxious person, that becomes a label. And so, you know, really just sort of working away from that, you know, and really, because I'm hoping, right, like as we're all pretty anxious now, I'm hoping pretty soon it's not so anxious, right? And I'm hoping that one day we are kinder, loving, you know, better society for everyone. And so that's, you know, what we want to portray to our children. So you're going to be talking about
battling quarantine fatigue.
Oh, fabulous. Great. I'll be looking and taking some notes on that. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm Dr. Michelle.
Dr. Joe,
Thank you so much and have a great night.
be well.